So our first speaker is Christopher Fielder, Field CTO at Arctic Wolf. And let me do a quick introduction about Chris. So Christopher has been in cybersecurity world for over 22 years with experience in military, government and corporate environments. Today, he is the field CTO for Arctic Wolf, while he enjoys researching emerging security trends and highlighting the expertise of the Arctic Wolf team. Chris, also very interesting, Chris holds 18 industry certifications, and including like a CISSP, CEH, GPAN, a lot of cybersecurity certifications. So for someone interested, so which certification I should get next, Chris definitely is the person to ask. And Chris will talk about cloud detection and response, closing the visibility gap.
So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the introduction. As Brian said, my name is Christopher Fielder. I am the field CTO at Arctic Wolf. I've been in cybersecurity for way too long now, it seems like. It's really all that I've ever done. So many years hands-on keyboard in the field as an analyst slash, pen tester, incident responder, all the fun things, and then transitioning into the type of role that I'm in now, where I get to look at some more of the big picture of what's going on with threat trends, also what's going on in the security market, and driving that to help ensure that what we do at Arctic Wolf is really delivering the best security outcomes for our customers and for the market as a whole. So I'm going to talk a little bit about cloud security, and this is based on some research and some digging we did into what is going on right now in the area of cloud security. And so, what we found when we dug into the different information that's out there is that cloud technology has just exponentially increased. Oh, let me see. Sorry, chat thing came up. Sorry about that, everyone. So, as I was saying, cloud technology, as we all know, has just exploded, exponentially growing. But the unfortunate thing is that as cloud technology is growing, it seems that cyber risk associated with cloud is also growing, which makes sense. And that's for a few different reasons, right? What we found is that cloud is pretty much killing the network perimeter. And then with the unfortunate COVID situation that happened, that kind of put the nail in the coffin when it came to the traditional network perimeter. Everyone worked from home, and the idea that, everyone's going to be in an office or a series of offices, and it was going to be contained in that small location, and there was a very defined perimeter, that went out the window. And then cloud, more adoption and more introduction means that the traditional idea of a perimeter just doesn't really exist anymore, and that brings all kind of additional challenges and security risks with it. Again, being in this industry for so many years, I've seen the evolution of some of these things. And one is the idea of change control and how the loss of change control has introduced some security concerns as well. What do I mean by that? Well, many years ago, when I was still an analyst, I remember that we would have, monthly or bi-weekly change control meetings where everyone that was a stakeholder in the network would sit in a big room and talk about what was being changed to the network in the next week or 2 weeks. And anytime that there was a concern, the security team could flag that. Hey, you want to introduce this new piece of software or this new piece of hardware, or you want to make these changes. Here's the issue and what problems that could present. Cloud has, in some ways, done away with change control because things can move so rapidly now. Where it would have taken maybe a few months to introduce a new area or application or new facet to the environment, now can be done in a day and with a swipe of a credit card. And in some situations, talking to some of the analysts that are out there, there are whole areas of their environment or cloud applications that are being introduced that the security team may not see it all until it's too late. And that's a major concern. So that's something that we want to move beyond. The attack surface is really exploding. So everything is network aware, everything is being networked, and everything has some sort of cloud component, it seems like. It's either communicating with a cloud or it exists within the cloud. And again, that brings all kind of security challenges with it. This idea of a limited attack surface or an attack surface that's somewhat static, that doesn't exist anymore. Just the idea of, you say a term like endpoint. Well, what do you mean by that? Because the traditional concept of an endpoint usually is, predominantly a Windows machine. And then you say, okay, well, then it's also a Mac machine, possibly Linux. And now it's really anything that's network aware, whether that's a printer or a server or an IoT device, right? All of these things are endpoints. And a lot of them, again, are communicating with the cloud or can be cloud deployed or exist entirely within the cloud. And if the security team does not have visibility into that, that's again a major concern because attackers could leverage that, and the security team may not be aware of it until it's too late. And then the sophisticated attacks that are being utilized by, again, attackers and threat actors that are leveraging the cloud. The introduction of things like ransomware as a service that's utilizing the cloud. So, as much as we're using the cloud, attackers are using it just as much. And in some ways, they're kind of staying ahead of us because they're finding ways to manipulate the cloud or use the cloud for malicious purposes. Again, something like a ransomware as a service where an entry vector broker or somebody that can identify a potential victim just communicates with a ransomware as a service provider, and then they execute the attack very quickly. That's unfortunate. Same thing with, utilizing a cloud-based solution for either the importing of attack tools or the exfiltration of data. Again, that's going to utilize cloud in a malicious way. So all of this is culminating in an increase in cyber risk and a decrease in the security a lot of organizations are feeling. 90% of security leaders believe their organization is falling short when it comes to addressing cyber risk. And this is from a 2021 survey that found that, most people are just saying, I don't feel that my organization is addressing this properly. And I think cloud is a major component of that. And the network perimeter, again, is eroding. It doesn't exist like it used to. I'm going to do some statistics here. Forgive me, there's a bit of a pop culture quote that says only the Sith deal in absolute, if anyone's a Star Wars fan. So I'm not going to say any of this is absolute. Instead, what I'll say is we can say the closest thing is 99%, right? That is a predominant amount. So I'm going to use three statistics here that leverage that 99% concept. 99% of organizations that are out there right now contain some form of public or private cloud usage. In fact, I believe the statistic, and I want to say this comes from Gartner. I can give you the actual note here in just a little bit, but said that over 99%, I believe it was like 99.2%, are using some form of public or private cloud. Almost everyone. And it makes sense, right? I'm more surprised when I talk to somebody that says that they don't use any form of cloud, especially when I start talking to them more and digging into it and peeling back the layers. You start to ask more questions and you say things like, oh, you don't use any cloud. I understand. You don't want to immediately jump to conclusions. But then you probe a little bit deeper and you say things like, um, are you using Office 365? Are you using Salesforce? Are you using OneDrive or Dropbox? Quite often you'll get yeses to multiple of those. And then you want to say later on, you know, that's cloud, technically. We're talking about cloud there. But what concerns me is since you say you're not using cloud, but you're using those things, I have to make the assumption that you're probably not securing them the way that you should. So it's an unfortunate situation again. Now, there's a statistic that goes in line with this based on some research that we at Arctic Wolf did. What we found is that even though 99% of organizations are using some form of public or private cloud, only 18% of organizations are actively using some form of cloud security posture management or active cloud monitoring. And this is a major problem. That leaves 80% of organizations out there that are not effectively and actively securing their cloud components. And we know how cloud can be leveraged for attack purposes. A large number of attacks that we observe contain some form of cloud utilization where the attacker is leveraging the cloud for exfiltration. Again, they're bringing data in off the cloud. They're pivoting off of the cloud or a cloud resource like a business email compromise that we'll take a look at here in a moment. So to say that only 18% are actively securing the cloud, this is a major concern and a major problem. We want to get that up. We want to say that we're going to actively monitor the cloud and secure the cloud in the same way that we would any other area of our environment. You say that you monitor your internal environment, your internal network, 24 by 7, 365. You've got active defenses in your environment. You want to take that same concept to the cloud. You want to treat any cloud component or any cloud utilization the same way as you would any part of your network because it is part of your network. Even though you may not be able to lay physical hands on it, even though it may not be within your perimeter, it is still something you're utilizing. It is still a portion of your network, and you still want to treat it as such and protect it as such, if not more, because you aren't able to lay physical hands on it. Going back to those 99%, 99% of cloud identities are overly permissive. So a lot of organizations, vast majority, are actually saying, I would rather fail safe than fail secure in this concept, meaning I would rather give my cloud identities too many permissions than too few. And that is based again on that idea of, well, okay, I can't lay hands on it. I need to be extra cautious with it. I need to make sure it needs to do what it's designed to do. So I'm going to give them too many permissions. And this is a problem. This is where attackers are manipulating this capability and saying, I'm going to use those overly permissive identities and those overly permissive cloud functions to do nefarious things or manipulate that to then pivot deeper into the environment. And 99% of cloud security failures will be the result of a customer misconfiguration or policy, meaning that the cloud component itself, right? The cloud that you're receiving, the application or the infrastructure as a service capability of the platform that you're being provided by that cloud provider itself is secure. But once you receive it and you take control over it or your capability, then the misconfigurations are coming in from what the customer is doing, unfortunately. And that's understood, right? As I said, you would rather give them too many permissions than not enough, or maybe it's just a misunderstanding of the way to configure it. But this is why we need to go back up to that top and say, okay, we understand there's probably going to be some misconfigurations. We understand there's probably going to be too many permissions, but we need to compensate for that by being as actively monitoring and providing as much defense as we can on that front. We know there's going to be some problems in there. We know that attackers are going to try and manipulate it. So, therefore, we need to monitor it as actively as we can. We need to be able to jump in and correct these mistakes or identify threats and kind of stop them as quickly as we can to prevent them from becoming full scale breaches or bigger concerns. And legacy security operations unfortunately fails when we try to translate traditional security operations into the cloud. We need to take a new approach to it. So, identity, a lack of holistic visibility into cloud resources makes identifying and detecting threats a difficult task. That goes back to what I said before. A lot of organizations that we'll speak to will not have a full grasp of what their cloud posture looks like and what their cloud components are. And if they do have a good grasp of it, then we get to the next problem of not gaining the correct visibility into it. Taking the idea of saying, well, we'll make best effort, and unfortunately, we pay for it. We hope that they are doing their part to secure it. Again, we understand 99% of the times the misconfigurations on the customer side. So saying, what, we're going to hope for the best and hope that, once it breaches our perimeter or gets into to our internal network, then we'll detect it. Unfortunately, by that time, it may be too late, but also think of the different cloud components you have and the damage that can be caused without ever even actually entering your network perimeter. Here in a moment, I'm going to show you an example of that. Being able to contain within the cloud. So, limited control within SaaS or software as a service applications, paired with minimal detection, results in a lack of containment capabilities or being able to quickly move on these threats once they are identified. Before they breach your perimeter is when we want to detect them and then eliminate them or contain them. Unfortunately, a lot of situations, if you don't have the right visibility into your cloud applications, you're also not going to have the right containment capability. So you want to be able to leverage those two things. You want to get deep visibility and then the ability to then say, okay, I want to stop that attack before it goes any further. And successful cloud threats can breach environments and result in large scale compromises before they can be minimized, unfortunately. So again, being able to move on them very quickly and prevent the damage they can cause. And security operations and incident response, it must evolve with our environments. So these are suggestions we generally make, and this is just the bare minimum of things that we would say to do. But it's based on the idea that it's very difficult to take the legacy approach. It's very difficult to say, okay, we're going to do boots on the ground incident response and boots on the ground detection when there is no ground to put those boots on, right? So cloud exists kind of in this space that's not real. You may never see those servers or those devices because some situations they just straight up don't exist. So how are you going to take the traditional approach and then translate that? You can't. You have to evolve your approach. So first, we always say gain every ounce of visibility you can into your cloud resources. Use the pre-existing capabilities that they will provide you, whether it's utilizing their APIs, utilizing all the resources they grant to you to then get the visibility, but also look for additional tools or services that can gain visibility into those areas. Detect early and prevent lateral movement. Eliminate the idea of saying, okay, it exists within the cloud, so I'm going to not put as much emphasis on it. Instead, I want to hope that it doesn't breach my perimeter. That's the wrong approach to take because it will breach the perimeter. It will gain uh, internal momentum and it will gain the ability to move laterally. You want to stop that. You want to prevent it as early as you can. And again, like I said before, think of everything that you maintain in the cloud and the damage that it can cause. So detect early and stop it from going any further. Leverage threat intelligence, specifically intelligence that is geared towards the cloud and any cloud resources that you have. Look for good quality threat intelligence and diversified threat intelligence. I always recommend that is, the best threat intelligence you can use is from a wide range of sources, right? So look for anything and everything that you can obtain and apply it all to your environment. Sometimes you're going to have to pay, but there's also free threat intelligence that's out there. Or look for a provider that utilizes multiple sources of threat intelligence that can really be utilized to peer into what threats you face in the cloud. And then emphasize a process of remote incident response that can move very quickly. This is going back to that idea of, there is no physical location to deploy people to do incident response. So you need a good process of remote incident response. The idea of boots on the ground should only be reserved for, the extreme circumstances, the last minute situations where you need someone to go inside the perimeter. But if it is existing within the cloud, you need a good quality, good process of remote incident response, being able to get into those cloud capabilities to contain the threat once you've detected the threat, and then eliminate it, and then restore function. So look for that process as well. Develop a incident response plan that takes cloud to consideration, and look for all the tools that you either have or can leverage that can be utilized within the cloud as well. And I said I was going to show you an incident here or a situation that is speaking to this. So this is an actual real world situation that we found at Arctic Wolf. Somebody mentioned in the chat that they want to know a little bit more about what we do. I don't want to go too deep into like any kind of a sales pitch or anything. I'll say what we do at Arctic Wolf is we are a vendor neutral security operations service. So we don't preference one tool over another. We don't say you have to use any specific tools or really anything. We say whatever you have in your environment is what we will work with. What you use in the future is what we'll work with. And we look at the endpoints, the network, the cloud capabilities, log ingestion, the identity and access management. We look at everything that we can to get a big picture of, well, what threats are you facing? And in this situation, we identified a business email compromise utilizing cloud resources that was going to be quite devastating to the customer if it was successful. But we identified it very early and we responded to it very quickly and we were able to eliminate the threat. So I'll just give you an example. This has been sanitized to protect the customer, but this gives you an idea of what we actually saw here. So at 12:57 p.m., the attacker leveraged previously stolen credentials and sent a duo push to a legitimate user. So let me give you background on that based on what we uncovered. Previously stolen credentials. This attacker was actually able to purchase a set of credentials or passwords off of a dark web site. And they float around all the time. We do some dark web monitoring. We try to protect our customers from this, but these happen very quickly. And based on my experience, I don't want to go too deep into detail, but I'll tell you the way they generally work is somebody in your organization will sign up for a third-party website or tool using their company credentials, right? Maybe whatever it is, they'll sign up for it using your company's email address. And unfortunately, in situations like this one, they'll utilize the same password that they also utilize for your organization. A smart attacker will look and say, hey, look, I see that I dumped credentials for this website and somebody signed up for it under christopher.fielder at articwolf.com, and they utilize this really advanced password. There's a good possibility that that's the same password they utilize for their internal credentials. That's what this attacker found. And so they jumped in and tried to connect. But this company was using two-factor or multi-factor authentication. So they sent a push. Unfortunately, the user did what a lot of us do, and I'm going to be the first to admit I've done this myself, realized it too late, but you'll get a notification on your phone that pops up that says, "Hey, did you try to sign in?" And if you're in the middle of a conversation or you're busy or I'm delivering a presentation, I get that pop up. Just to make it be quiet, I might hit OK. And unfortunately, that's what this user did. They hit OK and they granted the attacker access. And the attacker started doing an active sync with their mailbox. So again, this is all cloud-based email. They never got into the actual perimeter. We noticed at this point that there was an unusual duo push and acceptance from an unknown location. So it was an anomaly that we detected. The attacker then opened up the calendar and looked for, and found something called best practices training that was existing already inside of that cloud-based calendar. And then they updated it with the attacker's information. And then they started creating add and delete rules, or excuse me, forward and delete rules in the mailbox as well, saying, okay, if emails come in, I want them automatically deleted or I want them forwarded to a third party email so the attacker could maintain persistence in there and keep looking at the emails. Again, I want to note again that this is all existing and happening in the cloud without the attacker ever touching the customer's website. Utilizing our log ingestion, we saw that these forward and delete rules were created. We took note of it and we started doing investigation into it. We said, okay, an unusual duo push that was accepted and forward and delete rules, put those two together, were a little suspicious, and we started doing a deeper investigation into this. At this point, the attacker actually uploaded a phishing PDF to OneDrive that they then attached to that calendar invite. So they utilized OneDrive, which is another cloud-based resource. And the PDF was a phishing PDF, meaning it was a PDF that actually was password protected. When the user puts in the password, the PDF said something like, "Hey, you need to unlock this PDF using your company credentials," something along those lines. When the user put it in, that then forwarded those credentials back to the attacker. So they took that PDF, that weaponized PDF, loaded it to OneDrive, dropped a link to it in the calendar invite that they updated and sent to the organization. When we saw this, we said, okay, this needs to stop. So we actively moved on this and we spoke with the user in this organization and said, okay, we need to now start disabling credentials and start disabling accounts and resetting credentials. Let me move this. I'm sorry, everyone. I got to pop up on my screen here. So the customer worked with us on this to start eliminating the threat. And then we started doing something that we call our security journey, where we go beyond just saying, okay, now the threat's done. We're going to move on. We started putting a plan together on how to first eliminate all aspects of the threat, doing root cause analysis. So we worked with them on making sure every aspect of that weaponized PDF was removed, making sure any credentials that were harvested were reset, accounts were reset as well, and put together a plan of how to eliminate things like this in the future. So this is one that was again a business email compromise, which was cloud-based. The attacker utilized OneDrive and Office 365, great tools. Always recommend people look at tools like that, but make sure that you've got the necessary visibility to identify things like this. Because what could have happened in this situation, if we weren't able to catch this, is that attacker would have harvested an unknown amount of credentials utilizing that weaponized PDF before it was too late. And then some of those credentials may have been reset, but others would have existed. And that could have gone into another password file that could have been sold on the dark web for even more malicious attack, or the attacker could have then pivoted deeper into the environment. And who's to say that maybe they could have then used another weaponized PDF? They could have had some sort of a payload for ransomware. Again, that could have happened as well. Luckily, we had the necessary visibility utilizing our data sources, and we were able to identify this and move on it in under 20 minutes and eliminate the threat from happening. I saw a question just came in here that said, yep, so how large was this organization? So I'll tell you, this organization was not overly large, but I will say it was around about the 500 person range. So, we work with everything from small organizations to large scale enterprises. And this falls right in that, small to medium sized organization for us. I don't want to go too deep just because that is customer data. Uh, and that was a real world incident, but I will tell you it's around, that 500 person range. So, some of the benefits to a cloud first approach is the one to many detection development. This is what we do from our cloud posture is, we take a look at everything that we absorb from our customers. We do make sure that our telemetry is secure and isolated. But by having a data lake of what is going on, we're able to detect threats in one area and apply our threat detection to the entire cloud-based data lake. So it's, what unfortunately affects one customer or one user then benefits everybody else. So that is a benefit of a cloud first approach. It also provides a single point of remediation if you do have that cloud capability. So you're able to go in and say, okay, from that cloud resource, I can remediate from that one tool, and I can remediate in this one area. And the ability to adapt and grow within the environment is also a big benefit of taking that cloud first approach. So with that, I always like to say and end this goes for cloud, but this also goes for really anything in cybersecurity. And that's that we really push people to switch from a tool mindset to an operational mindset. The tools that are being sold in the market right now are excellent. We're kind of at a renaissance of security tools where a lot of tools are almost at parity. I mean, they'll talk about, they can do some differences, but when we look at it from a higher view, a lot of them are very close and able to do amazing things. And that's excellent. So utilize that, but utilize it from an operational mindset. Not that the tool is going to solve your problem, but the tool is going to help you in solving your problem. But it's the people and it's the operations that are going to allow you to truly secure your environment and fix it. And this is especially true when it comes to cloud. You can buy tools that say that they will monitor the cloud, they will help you fix, what's going on in the cloud, but you need the 24 by 7, 365, eyes on glass people. You need the operational mindset to be able to do like I just showed you and move on an attack like that, in under a half an hour and prevent it from becoming a major wide scale breach. So, that's my recommendation here. You can take away from this and just anything in the future is the tools are excellent. Never going to say don't purchase them. You should always look at the tools that fit your environment, but put them in the context of an operational mindset. And I think I got another question that came in, if that's okay if I answer it real quick. What are some resources you would recommend or recommend to upper management just to buy the tool? Okay, so that's a good question. We run into that a lot. So the question that came in was, upper management says, hey, we're going to buy a tool and it's going to fix everything. So how do we try to convince them not to do that? And that's going to that idea of, hey, I put it into a metaphor where I say, you purchase, a chisel. It's not going to then lead to a marble statue, right? Or the situation that I ran myself into before is you go, hey, I want to build a shed. And you go to the hardware store and you buy all the tools that you need and all the lumber and you get it back to your house and you unload it all. And then you look at it and go, that's not a shed. That's a pile of wood. Now, what am I going to actually do here? The same approach goes to this situation where you go, I purchased the entire, security suite and the security stack, and it's a great set of tools that I can do great things with. Now I just need the hands behind it to do it. So that would be my recommendation there. Uh, so also somebody said, what would be your recommendation for compliance or zero trust policy used in cloud? So compliance is an interesting one because there's so many areas of compliance there that we can look into. Uh, I can just speak from my standpoint. We at Arctic Wolf have a specialty in compliance where we take the visibility that we are able to achieve and then align that with what compliance standards you fall under, and then say, here's the gaps that we see, and these are the recommendations that we have for meeting those goals. Somebody said, as someone with many certifications, what's the first course or certification you would recommend to an individual who wants to enter the industry? Oh, that's a great question. So again, I've got 18 and I worked for SANS, the SANS Institute for a while. So what I will say is there's a lot of excellent ones out there. Uh, the Without pointing to one particular vendor, I'll give you three based on, kind of an entry level, and that is the Security Plus, the Certified Ethical Hacker, and the SANS 401 course, right? And I kind of put those in a pyramid of lower cost to higher cost, but they're all great certifications. The CompTIA Security Plus is a great entry level certification. If you're limited on funds, or you just want to kind of get your feet wet with the certification, the Security Plus is an excellent entry level certification, and one that I see a lot of organizations say that is kind of the minimum of what we want you to have is the Security Plus. The Certified Ethical Hacker, on top of just having a really cool name, it has a lot of basic understanding of the offensive side of security as well. So if you're looking at going into penetration testing or red teaming or even purple teaming, or you want to get that perspective from an attacker, the CEH from the Certified Ethical Hacker from EC Council, great certification. And then that top level one, that's the SANS one. It's probably the most expensive, but it's a great hands-on course. You will learn great amount of information in there, and it's very practical. So yep. So would these be accessible for a student such as myself? For a student that's kind of limited on funds, I would say definitely start with the CompTIA A plus, and then from there, take a look at EC Council and SANS. They both have student outreach programs and ways that they can help you achieve those certifications. And some of them might have you go out to an event and maybe help out or volunteer, and they'll reduce the price of them. So look at the student options for that as well.